Review the review podcast. Review the review podcast.
We got to nail that down one of these days of my boos and your review, like, because we're on two different tones.
We are.
All right. Hi, Brie.
Hi, Anthony.
How are you today?
I'm good.
We're good?
I'm good.
You want to show the audience your hat?
My hat, Save the Dinos. My necklace, a T-Rex skeleton.
Yeah, you may notice if you're watching on our video modem on YouTube, review podcast on youtube.com, our decor is a little bit different than it has been in the past few episodes. We've taken down the Halloween stuff and we've put up the Jurassic Park stuff.
And we have a lot of Jurassic Park
stuff. We were putting this up and I was like trying to find room for it all at the edge of this table. And it was a little tough. So this is all Brie's stuff, basically.
Yeah.
We've got our Funko Pops here. We've got sexy Dr. Ian Malcolm. We've got the Dilophosaurus, the chase version of the Dilophosaurus. We've got Target exclusive Owen with Baby Blue. When we get to Jurassic World, eventually, we'll talk more towards that. And then we've got a blue there. We've got a blue here. We've got a little dino guy there. And then we've got Michael Crichton's classic Jurassic Park in book form.
Yes, I have read the book.
I have not read the book.
It's really good. And I said that, like, doing this review of Jurassic Park, I'm gonna read the book again.
Sure. He wrote a sequel.
Yes.
Okay. Did you
read
the sequel?
World. Yes, I did read the sequel.
Can you talk towards it when we get to the sequel?
Yeah.
Nice.
Big fan. Well, I'm a science fiction nerd. I love science fiction books. And I love the way Crichton writes science fiction, where it's kind of like, this would happen if we play God, and it kind of warns against. Is
Crichton as an author, is that one of his major themes of a lot of his books, playing God?
Like all of them.
Yeah. I feel like I've heard that before.
Yeah, don't play God is essentially, and I have extensive notes for this review podcast because I have my movie notes going beat by beat when reviewing, and then I have my book notes, and then I have some fun facts about the movie's production and all of that. So
I feel like we've done so much because we're recording these podcasts out of order than when we're uploading them to unveil the curtain, so to speak.
Yeah.
So we are doing this after we've recorded Halloween 6, and we're uploading it after we've done Halloween 3, which is why maybe some audio sounds a little bit different. But we've been on this Halloween kick for so long. It's nice to take a breath of fresh air for a second.
Watch something different. We went from 85-ish minute movies to an hour and 10 minutes.
At the runtime. I was looking at the runtime to prepare our schedule for cooking dinner or getting dinner, watching the movie, and then recording the pod, where I looked at Jurassic Park and it was, wow, 2 hours and 7 minute runtime. And then I looked at all of the other Halloween movies at 85, 87, 90 minute runtimes. I was like, we have been lucky recently with the amount of time a Halloween movie is. I have to
say, this movie is so much easier to sit down for the 2 hours than a really bad movie for 85 minutes.
I was going to bring that up as well, where I feel like since it's acknowledged at this point, we're reviewing these out of order and uploading these out of order, that we've watched a lot of not great movies. Majority of the movies that we've reviewed here, aside from the first Halloween, we aren't necessarily bad. Halloween 2 isn't a terrible movie. Halloween 3 is not a bad movie. 4 is okay. 5 bad. 6 really bad. And
we'll get into it.
Yeah. And I feel like we've just been reviewing not great movies so far. So I wrote notes, but when you have a good movie, it's hard to write notes, because aside from beat by beat what's happening in the story, because what am I gonna criticize? What am I gonna?
And I don't even criticize. I have my book version, my movie version right next to each other. I have no criticism. I think the book is good in its own right, and then the movie adaptation is almost beat by beat the same, but there are nuanced differences. But your like skeleton of the story is very similar.
Pretty similar from what you've explained to me in the past. Pretty similar. So we got a little plate in the middle of our table here.
Yes, it's Brie's treats.
She got really excited. She had a lot of ideas for Brie's treats.
And he told me to narrow it down for one. Well, because we'll have a lot of movies in the Jurassic series. We've got 5 Jurassic Park movies to get through. So spread it out a little bit. So today we have 2 treats, one being like a dessert and one being a beverage. So right here we have our little mosquitoes in amber, and this is orange jello and yellow jello. So that your orange and your lemon jello in an ice cube mold. You pour that in, and then you can use a raisin or a cranberry. I use dark chocolate because orange and dark chocolate go really well together. I've tried these. They're good. Anthony, you want to try one?
On screen?
Yeah, they're jello, so.
Sure. Oh my gosh. It's like breaking apart. I lost the...
Dude, there's a fork on the...
Oh, there's a fork on the... I was grabbing it with my fingers. All right, let's get it. I lost the mosquito. This is... There
you go.
I'm just an idiot. Like, this isn't good. Nice.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, it got quiet there because I was like savoring it. Dark chocolate and the orange really do go pretty well together. When you said that, I was a little like, I don't know about that, but
super easy to make. Our jello taking a little bit longer to form up in the fridge. If I was to do this again, I mean, the recipe that I found called for putting it in the ice cube tray. I would get bigger ice cube tray molds.
And we were going to go smaller initially.
Yeah, because I mean, it was pretty hard to get these out.
Yeah, which is why some of them look like they're pretty well formed, and some of them look like they've been in the struggle bus a little bit.
Yeah, and here we have swamp juice for our viewers at home. This is an alcoholic beverage, so this takes days to make.
Okay, yeah, I can go through the preliminaries on this one. So this is Skittles Vodka. Skittles Vodka. You take a little bit of vodka, and you put some Skittles color by color inside the vodka. And this is like a day process to make. I got the recipe off Tipsy Bartender. Shout out Tipsy Bartender.
Yeah, so this is just some of the green Skittle vodka. You put maybe about half a shot in the bottom of the glass. And then we use 7-Up. And it's topped with a little bit of lemonade and lemon juice.
There's lemon juice in there too. I saw you put the lemonade in.
So cheers. We're gonna try it on camera. Cheers.
All right, let's do this thing. It's good. I don't really taste the vodka all that much. There's no vodka burn to it.
That's good. This is a nice beverage to drink while watching the movie.
Do you think there's a difference between 7-Up and Sprite?
Yes.
I do too. I feel like I'm tasting 7-Up when I should be tasting Sprite.
Yes. Yeah. So it's very good. It's a very good dessert and a very good beverage. There will be more fun little things coming up with our future ones. I like to pull foods that they eat from the movies itself, but they eat like this like branzino fish meal. I could never recreate. I could never recreate it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Can we make sloppy steaks one day?
No.
Sloppy steaks from only if they're from Trefani's.
Okay.
Me sloppy steaks? Come on.
Okay, so let me get down to the background of this movie. So Michael Crichton was writing this book like probably in the late 80s. He was working on ER with Steven Spielberg at the time, and Steven Spielberg was like, "Hey, what are you working on next?" Crichton explains like the book he's currently working on. Spielberg immediately goes and buys the film rights to this book before the book is even done.
Like it, love it,
gotta have it. So he finishes the book, and the book is published in 1990, and the movie is released in 1993.
Is it 93? I thought it was 97 for some reason.
93.
Yeah, I'm wrong. You're right. You know more. You're the dinosaur girl.
He bought the film rights like before the book was published. It grossed $402 million domestically, and globally it was $1 billion. I'll be very careful.
Yeah, Brie just slammed her notebook on the wire to her microphone, so we just want to make sure we're good.
I'm trying my best.
Yeah, that's good. It was at one point the highest grossing movie of all time.
It should still be. I argue that this is the best movie ever made.
Do you know what the highest grossing movie of all time is?
Is it Titanic?
No.
I thought it was.
It was for a little bit, and then it got beat by one movie, and then it got beat by another movie in recent years.
Avatar
held it for a long time.
And now it's held by
Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
Which Avengers Endgame had to re-release the movie to catch up.
To be able to get there. So let's talk about the beginning of this movie is really the biggest difference from the book and the movie version. So in the book, it opens with a previously unknown variety of lizard is attacking kids in Costa Rica. A sample of a carcass of a lizard is sent to Columbia University, and a lab tech believes that it is a dinosaur. And he calls Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler, and he sends them that sample carcass. And
Grant is an archaeologist. I wrote this down. Brie looks over me. She's like, "What you writing?" And I said, "I'm taking note of their occupation." So Grant is an archaeologist, and Ellie Sattler is a paleobotanist, which you had to explain that.
What a paleobotanist was. Paleobotanist studies prehistoric plants.
Cool. Yeah, because there is a scene in the movie where she looks at a big leaf and she's like,
this shouldn't be.
Wow, this is like centuries.
She's like, this
old.
doesn't belong here. This shouldn't be here. So Grant can't believe that this is they found this carcass, that this is, he firmly believes it's a dinosaur, and then Ellie and him get flown to Isla Nublar. So it's now we're getting to the actual where the book and the movie are kind of the same. Where the movie opens up with death by Raptor.
Yeah, we see a big crate, like a very high tech crate, is being put into a fence. Like they're trying to transport something. And there's a lot of Jurassic Park workers out there. There's this dude with a shotgun, and whatever's in the crate. Sorry, I had to burp off of.
Well, the dude with the shotgun is, I believe that's their game hunter.
Yes.
Which his name is, goodness.
Can't remember.
Yeah, I have it written down.
You can just say game hunter.
Yeah.
He's the raptor handler, and he's
Game Warden Muldoon.
Muldoon. That's his name.
Well, that's his name in the book. I'm not sure.
Probably. Let's just call him Muldoon.
Actually, they do a really good job in this movie where almost everyone's name is the same as it is in the book.
Yeah.
Actually, I think almost everybody we encounter is the exact same name.
As it should be.
Yeah, that's how you should adapt books to movies, not change things.
So in the theatrical movie, we see the raptors they don't escape the cage, but they attack people once they are in the fencing area.
Well, what happens is they go to pull up the divider to get the one raptor into the cage, and the raptor kind of pushes back.
Yeah.
And so there's a little gap between the container, the transport container, and the enclosure, and unfortunately someone's too close to that gap and gets dragged inside.
Right. So that's the opening scene, and I wrote down, we're establishing that Isla Nublar is off the coast of Puerto Rico, where you told me something about Puerto Rico in the book too.
No, it's Costa Rica.
Costa Rica. Oh, why did I say Puerto Rico? I don't know. I guess I just wasn't paying attention hard enough. So,
it's established that both Isla Nublar and Isla Sorna are both islands close to Costa Rica.
Isla Sorna is mentioned in the book.
Yes.
Not in the movie.
I don't even know. I don't know if they mentioned the second island in the first book.
I know we talked about this. I can't remember which sequel, The Lost World or Jurassic Park 3, where they go to the second island. I think it's Jurassic Park 3.
I know it's the one with the
with William H. Macy.
Yeah, where he plays the wealthy father who loses the son in there.
It's been a while. It's been a while for me.
I think it's the one where they're paragliding.
That's Jurassic Park 3.
Yeah.
I think. Crucify me if I'm wrong. I don't care. These are not... Halloween's my franchise. This is your franchise.
It is. I love this. I'm like, I know raptors are dangerous, but man, it's my favorite dinosaur.
We talked about this, that if you had an opportunity as a paleontologist to go to the island, would you go knowing that there's danger?
I would. And I've had this like real thought, because we're entering that like stage of technology where it's just like any day now.
It'll stop any day
And I'm
now.
like, if I get the opportunity, if they ask me to go, I would go, and knowing that I might die.
I would go. I think I would go.
I'm like,
if I knew what I was doing and they wanted my endorsement.
Curiosity would get the better of me. Like, this is a once in a lifetime experience. Yeah. If I die, I die, but at least I got to see a dinosaur.
And I got to like pet a triceratops, you know.
Like, I would kill for this.
Yeah.
So
the next portion of the movie, we're in the amber mines.
Yes.
In the Dominican Republic, and there's like a lawyer figure who is talking about the fact that they have deaths on their hands, and the insurance company or the lawyers, like, before they push forward with whatever they're trying to do, they need to get the approval of different scientists from different backgrounds. So they say, the lawyer says that he has the go ahead to come to the island from Dr. Malcolm, and he says he wants Dr. Grant too. So once we leave the amber mines, we get to this dig site where Grant is there, Dr. Alan Grant and Dr. Ellie Sadler. They're there and they're digging up bones, and they find the bones of a Velociraptor.
Fun fact, they actually do not have an accurate depiction of velociraptors. I'm gonna butcher the name of like this dinosaur. The Velociraptor of the movie is based off a dinosaur in the same family, the Deinonychus. I don't know how to say it. I'm gonna be honest.
And I'm not gonna know how to say it.
I'm not gonna know how. You could tell me how to say things a million times.
Listen, we're not dinosaur experts here.
But I am I know what it's like almost the exact same thing. It has the same like curved long claw. Velociraptors actually more like small and covered in feathers. And you'll see in a later...
Grant talks about that too. So I wrote down that Grant has this discussion with people about the evolution of the Velociraptor and how they may have been a little bit more bird-like, and like the etymology, is that what you call it? The study of words, right? The etymology of I'm butchering these words.
It means like
what Velociraptor means, and it means like bird of prey.
I think
right?
It's something like that. And
see how much I pay attention.
So it's based off of, so it's not...
I wrote ask Brie. Ask Brie about birds and dinosaurs.
Yeah, they're like the closest living relative.
Is he accurate in that description? Did the movie get that like pretty accurate in
closest living like relative to dinosaurs is believed to be birds.
Yeah. Cool.
Because I
asked you this earlier, did dinosaurs have feathers?
Some did.
The Velociraptor.
We don't know if they all did, because the unfortunate part of being like really into dinosaurs, and like I wanted to be a paleontologist for like the longest time. Still, if I was to ever go back to school just for the heck of it, I would do it. I think I could do it.
Like, sure, why not?
But the hardest part about anything, it's like when you study like dinosaurs and when you're studying things that have gone extinct, there is no way to know for sure what color they are, what they eat,
what they sound like. I brought this up to Brie when we watched the movie. I was like, we don't even know what dinosaurs sound like.
How they hunt, how they communicate, we don't know.
Whatever noises that we think dinosaurs make is just like us making those noises. We don't know what they sounded like. We don't know what kind of noises they make. Brie, give me your best impression of a velociraptor.
I cannot. I will embarrass myself on this here pod.
Yeah. A dinosaur could. I refuse to accept the notion that dinosaurs roared, and I accept the reality that they sounded like this. Ooh. Oh.
Oh. So then we have.
There's a kid at the dig site.
There's a kid at the dig site, and I'm like, why is there a kid at the dig site? But of course, like, if you're a family and like you have to be at the dig site, and you're at these dig sites for months. Like, these are like, I think that was one of the things, like, when I was younger and I was choosing what career to go into, I was like, that would be hard for me to be away for months and months, sometimes years at like a year at a time. How
smelly do you think people are at these dig sites?
You're smelly because you're living in campers. Like, that is accurate. And a lot of times the places you do dig are not cool places.
Everyone's sweating all the time.
You're sweating all the time. Yeah. But during this time this movie was being made, and while it was in production, they had discovered a new species of Velociraptor in North America that was bigger than the Velociraptors who are believed to be like kind of like really small, almost like a little bit bigger than chickens, maybe like turkey size is actually more accurate, not the big ones we see. Mm-hmm. But then they found and discovered a bigger species. So the paleontologists like involved in like, because they consulted paleontologists along the way and didn't always listen to them.
In what ways did they not listen to the paleontologists?
Velociraptors are only this big actually. Oh, well, no, because they need to be like this big for them to look scary on like the screen. So it's really cool. I mean, I'm really obviously I was a dinosaur kid.
The girl loves dinosaurs.
And then we get to where it starts to be similar with the book, where they get onto the helicopter, they're dropping down onto the island.
Well, before this, I want to get back to this kid that's at the dig site. So the kid's like, Velociraptors are just big turkeys. And he says something like that, and then Grant like goes up to him and basically explains every way that a Velociraptor could kill you.
Well, they might be big turkeys, but they're big turkeys with like huge talons.
Yeah, he's gonna take this claw and he's not gonna bite you with all those teeth. He's gonna scratch you here. He's gonna cut open your belly here, and I'm like,
and he's gonna eat you while you're alive.
Yeah, this is heavy to tell this kid, but I guess the kid was being a dick, so fair game.
So we get them arriving to the island.
Well, Hammond is introduced at this point where he invades their camper.
Well, in Hammond's defense, he is like his company, like InGen Bioengineering, like they're funding this dig.
Yeah. So he breaks into their camper and Grant's like, "Who the hell are you?" And he pops open their champagne and he's like,
"You're saying that."
Speaking like a maniac almost. He's like talking like a crazy person, and he explains to them exactly what he's doing. I'm opening up this park. I need opinions from people like you.
But he doesn't tell them.
He doesn't tell them what's in the park.
He doesn't say what's in the park.
He just is like, you're going to want to see this.
You're going to want to see it.
And they're like, why should we come with you?
And he originally just wants Dr. Grant, but finds out like Ellie's like paleo.
And he's like, the more the merrier.
Yeah.
The more endorsements we can have, the merrier. And he doesn't tell them why they're going to the park. And Grant's like, well, why should we even go? He's like, we got this dig here. We just found these bones. And Hammond tells them, I will fund your next digs for 3 years.
Like, money.
Twist my arm. Okay.
Money. Everything is done for money. Let's be honest.
For money. Oh, I'm going to get into that because I have a little analysis on what I think Spielberg or maybe Crichton was trying to say with the Hammond character.
And we'll get into, we talked about this while we were going. So we get them dropping in. We have in the book, it's his name is Donald Gennaro is the lawyer. Then we have Ian Malcolm, we have Ellie, and we have Dr. Grant. They're dropping in on this island in a helicopter.
Ian Malcolm, played by our favorite person, Jeff Goldblum.
They drop in and like they get in these like Jeeps that have like a dinosaur logo on there. Immediately, I would know what this park was going to be about. Ellie's,
If I get you a decal for your car,
I will.
Would you put it on?
Yes, I would.
Like a big decal on the side of your car.
100%.
Oh, that'd be dope. We should do that.
And then so they're driving to like the main complex, and they stop, and Grant kind of like takes off his glasses, like has to like look at what's going on.
I wrote about this, and I said, first of all, about Hammond, the rich just do whatever they want to do, and they're just like, I'll give you all this money to do so. We'll talk about that later. Grant with aviators smirking at the helicopter, cool. What a cool guy. He looked really cool. I was just like, that guy's cool.
Grant is cool, certified cool in this whole thing.
Sam Neill with aviators and a cowboy hat with that blue button down and the scarf. He's cool. He's a cool guy.
100%.
Yeah, I'd rock that look if I could pull it off.
I wish I could pull off Ellie's look. I probably could.
We should do that for Halloween this year. That would be a good costume. Good little couple's costume.
Or
maybe I can do Malcolm. I can do stupid, sexy Ian Malcolm.
Now, who plays opposite of him in the second one?
I don't remember. It's been a while since I saw the
don't know
Lost
the
World.
actress's name, but he has a girlfriend in the second one. No,
we'll talk.
And child.
He has a child?
Yeah.
Oh, it shows you how long it's been since I watched that movie. I know I've seen it before. It's just been a while.
They stop and they get to see the Brachiosaurus.
Well, we're skipping a part. An important part. Newman is on the island. Newman from Seinfeld is on the island.
Dennis Nedry.
And he has been meeting with another scientist or company person.
Is Biosyn Systems Corp, a rival and company to InGen, and they enlisted him to steal 15 viable dinosaur embryos.
Yeah, and they give him a bunch of money to do so, and Dennis says that he can basically get past the security system.
Because in the book, he created it.
Well, yeah, it's him and Sam Jackson.
Well, in the book, it's like really it's
just him.
Well, no, it's both. Well, I don't like he creates it almost entirely. So even in the movie, it kind of shows that he's creating this.
He's like in charge of it.
Like he's the one who's, and this is a complex computer system because
they talk about it's a complex code because once he actually does shut it down, they say in order to get this thing back up, like he encrypted it to a point where like we need to go through every single line of code in order to figure this out. And there's 2 million lines of code. Like it's going to take a long time.
And I mean, what's crazy about that whole, like his coding is his whole thing. He's motivated by money. He doesn't think Hammond is paying him enough.
And they have that conversation.
It's designed so that they don't need a ton of staff, that most of everything is computer generated.
Yeah. And they make that mention a little bit later on in the movie where it's like, we can run this whole park just with 2 people sitting in a room with a computer. But we'll see how that comes back to bite them.
He's important. He's going to purposefully sabotage the security system, put some of it offline in order to steal the 15 dinosaur embryos and get to the dock and get off the island. But there are some hiccups along the way, like the impending tropical storm.
Yes. Hammond mentions, so the lawyer says, how do we know that this place is safe? And Hammond I wrote this down, that Hammond talks about the level of security that they have. He's like, if they can't get past the fences, then they can't get past the gates, the concrete walls. And then he's like, we have moats too. So there's a lot of stuff
of what we have at modern zoos. We have moats, walls, and fences.
Yeah. And I like that Sam Jackson at one point says, we're having the issues of running a theme park and a zoo. And it's like, that's an interesting point to make because each of those things probably has their own different set of issues. And if you're experiencing both of those, maybe this park shouldn't be rushed to open.
Which they go along with, like, you so focused on that you can do it, you don't never think about if you should.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that scene. I got a lot to say about that scene.
They see the Brachiosaurus.
Yeah, I think this is the coolest part of the movie. This is probably my favorite scene of the whole movie.
If they had
I mentioned to you when we watched it why, I think.
If they had stuck to just herbivores on the island, I think everything would have been fine.
Yeah. So they're driving and they see the Brachiosaurus. I would have said a Brontosaurus.
So there has been debate on if a Brontosaurus even exists, or if it was just a Brachiosaurus without its crest that was found.
Yeah.
There might be. I haven't kept up on the science, but I heard a couple of years ago that there might have been more proof that the Brontosaurus was its own species. But we're gonna stick to these were actually Brachiosaurus. They have the crest.
If you think Brontosaurus and Brachiosaurus are the same, then you obviously haven't been reading the literature.
Yeah, essentially. I have a lot to say about like the actual dinosaurs when we get to each dinosaur. So like, okay, and especially when we get to the sequel with like
the things that look like Velociraptors.
Well, with the Spinosaurus, because a lot of new stuff has been coming out about Spinosaurus. So I'm excited to talk about all the new science. I haven't been
keeping up with the literature, so
I'm excited to talk about all the new science about the Spinosaurus because we know more about Spinosaurus now.
I think that scene of them seeing the Brachiosaurus for the first time is really the best scene of the movie because it's the first time we get that big score, that beautiful John Williams score. Na, 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 na,
and I'd argue that even to this day, the big moments, the big scenes that are just beautiful about this series involve the Brachiosaurus.
Yeah, yeah. So they see the Brachiosaurus and we get this big score and it's them just like in amazement that they're seeing a dinosaur. And I looked over at Brie, I was like, you know why this scene works? I think is because you got to put yourself in the shoes of 1993 when people are in the theater for the first time seeing something like this. They had never seen special effects that look as good as giving us a live dinosaur, right? So the audience is mesmerized and thrilled and amazed that they're seeing this just as our characters are. So it's really this one moment in the film where we and the characters are both experiencing the same things. And
that overwhelming feeling.
Right.
And I can kind of like, if I was to go into the place of Dr. Grant and Dr. Adler, that at this point, all science is just educated guesses, and he talks about they're in packs, they're moving in packs, like they're communicating, and he's like overwhelmed with the fact that like this is stuff that we guessed, our best guess, and this is me seeing it, and it's actually true. Like it's a very overwhelming feeling.
It's got to be. If I'm putting myself in the shoes of these characters, it's got to be a vindicating feeling only or at least where you have these educated guesses for so long and the science is telling us this and we've kind of come to these educated conclusions about the way these dinosaurs act, and to see it play out the way we theorized that it would play out is vindicating because then it shows you were right and you did everything you were supposed to do, and it's just like it's a very like proving feeling.
Yeah, because even if we are correct, we won't know because we'll never see a dinosaur.
Yeah. So I really, really love that scene. And I want to go into a little behind the scenes for you because I did a little bit of research because I asked Brie going into this, I was like, so you're going to lead this podcast for us.
And I have been.
And she has been, and she's been doing a great job. And I like to go into the production aspect of a lot of these movies.
And I said, go ahead and look up some production stuff because I know a couple of things about the production of the movie, but I don't want to overwhelm you with production stuff. But he's the production guy, so let's totally get your little behind the scenes.
So Steven Spielberg really was pushing for, we got to make these freaking dinosaurs as realistic looking as possible. So they were initially going to do just straight up animatronics for all these dinosaurs, and they hired a couple, I can't remember the companies, but they hired some companies to work on go motion, which is the blurred view of special effects, where if an animatronic is moving and you want to make it look like it's moving fast, you give it a kind of blur motion so that if something's running, it makes it look like it's running on camera, like right in front of you. And Steven Spielberg was not too happy with the blur motion on the special effects for the animatronics. So he said, okay, what else can we do? And the people that he hired to do computer generated imagery said, we've been working on a CGI dinosaur. And they showed Steven Spielberg a skeleton of a T-Rex computer generated as it was just walking in place. And Spielberg's like, do that, do everything with that. And the dude that worked on the animatronics looked at Spielberg and said, or Spielberg said to him, looks like, he's like, you guys might be out of a job. And the guy said, more like extinct. And that's a line that Steven Spielberg puts into the script from that interaction. But he kept those people on because
there's something to say about the actual like animatronics in this.
And so the movie is a mixture of puppetry, animatronics, and CGI. So he kept those people on and called them the Dinosaur Specialists. So they were in charge of basically eliciting what the dinosaurs would do, what they would look like as they were moving, to kind of give a little authenticity to the CGI movements. So the first time we see that CGI Brachiosaurus in that first scene of the dinosaurs, that is the first time really anybody in like modern cinema is looking at a full CGI dinosaur. So I think that scene is interesting, and that behind the scenes kind of plays into why that scene is what it is and why it's made.
Could you imagine how big an animatronic would have to be? Actually,
they did make a big the T-Rex.
Yes, the T-Rex is animatronic and was the only animatronic to make it on site for filming.
Yeah, and I'll get. There's the story of the rain, and
there was a hurricane.
Yeah, and a lot of the rain in the hurricane is in the movie too, because a lot of the middle action set pieces in the film are in a dark and stormy night.
It was a dark and stormy night.
So the T-Rex animatronic, it was frustrating for Spielberg and crew to film because the top layer of the T-Rex was like foam. So when the rain was coming down, it kept absorbing the foam, which made it bop up and down a lot. So between every take that they did, the crew had to pat down with like rags. They had to pat down and kind of dry off the T-Rex a little bit.
I wish I had a giant T-Rex.
But I think they said that T-Rex was maybe the biggest animatronic that, or the biggest living sculpture that had ever been in film at that point. Maybe on par with maybe King Kong, but I don't know if King Kong was a guy in a suit at the time. Godzilla was.
So we get then they're on like they're in the ride where they're talking about the DNA and like how they did it, which they found a mosquito preserved in amber. They extracted the blood from the mosquito. They get the DNA sequence. There's gaps in the DNA sequence. Their scientists fill in the gaps with frog DNA. And that's how they produce these dinosaurs.
Which, props to Michael Crichton, because that's a really thought out explanation on how you can realistically like clone a dinosaur. It's really, really well. I don't know if it's well thought out, but it's thought out.
It also expresses the dangers of using DNA that isn't belonging to that dinosaur, which we'll get into a lot when we get into Jurassic World. I was gonna talk about Jurassic World. When you use DNA that has not belonged, I mean, in Jurassic World they purposely breed a dinosaur that's never existed before, but these are dinosaurs that have existed before, but you're giving them new traits because their DNA sequence is not complete, so they're not the exact same creature. These are brand new, even though it looks like a
spanking new dinos.
Like it looks like a T-Rex, it acts like a T-Rex, but it's not exactly a T-Rex.
Yeah, and the explanation that they give about the mosquito and the blood and the DNA sequencing and filling in the gaps, I think that, like, when I first saw this movie, I remember hearing that explanation, and I was just like, super complex, but also simple at the same time. Like, we as a casual viewer, not knowing anything about DNA and gene sequencing, like
me as a little nerdy, like, I forget when I first saw this movie, but me as a little nerd going, very interesting, very interesting, very interesting.
I remember asking, it's like, it's simple to a point where casual viewers can understand it, but it's complex to a point where, like, man, that's really well thought out. I remember when I was in my bio class in high school, my biology teacher, he had one day where he's like, if anybody anonymously can ask like any kind of question related to biology or science that they want. So my question was, can Jurassic Park happen? And you know what he said? He was like this. I think I've said this answer to you.
I think we get closer and closer to it.
Yeah, I think I've said this answer to you many times on different things, especially in talking about the Lamborghini debate. It's probable, or it's possible, but not probable, right? Like, it's anything's possible, but
the probability of it being us finding viable dinosaur DNA, extracting viable dinosaur DNA.
But I got to be honest with you. I watched this movie again. I'm like, why can't we do it?
Because
like, why can't, so like,
shouldn't.
Yeah, and they get to that debate. So this is red flag number one for me about this park. Not only is dinosaurs roaming around, that's red flag number one. Red flag number two is that like all the scientists were able to get out of the ride really easily.
Oh yeah, and then they really want to go into like the laboratory because they have questions, because this ride is designed for like the casual visitor, not for actual scientists who are really interested in this. So they break out and they get to meet Dr. Wu, who is in both the book and the movie as really the brains behind this operation.
He's the scientist behind the cloning process and the incubation process and the birthing process. And I was like, man, if these scientists can get out of this ride easily, like, that's a red flag for your park, because what's stopping a 17-year-old kid from trying to impress his date and getting out of the ride and messing with the lab?
Yeah, and they see the birth of a Velociraptor, and Grant is noticeably kind of wary about that. And throughout this entire movie, I'm wary about the Velociraptor. They're in such a small enclosure because those animals jump and they're fast, like 50 to 60 miles an hour.
Like Hido.
And they are, like, they eat people.
Yeah.
Obviously.
It's like my dog.
So if that is an animal that you're keeping on your park, they have to have those tall, like, fences, and people can't really see them anyway. What value are they bringing to your park?
They're freaking cool.
Yeah, but you can't. But people cannot see them because they're dangerous.
Yeah. Do you remember when we went to that Jurassic World exhibit at the museum?
I think about it all the time.
And they had, like, it was a dude in a Velociraptor costume, but it was like one of those costumes where the feet are attached to your feet and the arms are attached to your arms, but then the top is attached to your head. So it's like you can move the arms and the legs, and he's in like a black jumpsuit. And so it's dark and you kind of just see the Velociraptor. I swear, I took Brie to this for like her birthday. I think it was a Christmas gift or something.
It was so fun.
And I took Brie to this, and I have the pictures still, or you have the pictures, but she was so like smiling ear to ear, like about these animatronic dinos that were at the museum. And I tell her all the time, like, when they did that Velociraptor exhibit and they had the Velociraptors there and everyone's watching, because it's kind of like a show. So everyone's standing around and watching it. And we were kind of like on the side towards the front, and I just like was behind Brie and I had my hands on her shoulders and I just whispered to her, I'm like, come on, go up. And I was like, I felt like a dad that took his kid.
Like so like making me take pictures with things. Well, not making me take pictures with that. He's like, oh, you want to go take a picture with that? Go take a picture. I was like, he was like my dad for the day. Taking pictures of me. And honestly, like that was one of the best gifts I've ever gotten. Like
that was a cool time. That was fun.
It was a really good gift.
That's where you got this, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you got that dino there. Where did you get this?
That's from Build-A-Bear.
Oh, this is from Build-A-Bear?
Yeah, the t-shirt also from Build-A-Bear.
I don't want to move it.
He has a Jurassic World t-shirt on. That's my blue.
Cool.
I love them.
Anyway,
and they go from the lab talking with Dr. Wu to, Hammond is trying to figure out.
Well, before that, they asked Dr. Wu about breeding.
Yes.
And Dr. Wu says it's impossible for them to breed because they're all female. They're all female. And that's when
we have
Ian Malcolm, who studies chaos theory, is talking. He's pretty much his whole thing. His whole thing is about what could go wrong and what is unexpected and what's unpredictable.
Will happen, can happen, butterfly effect, all that.
And that's where he gets into this conversation about playing God, and he gets in this conversation about life finds a way. And
kind of foreshadowing that something's going to go wrong.
So really everything that goes wrong is foreshadowed in this movie in some way. Like everything that happens is brought up. Like when they're talking about the Velociraptors, they're like, the guy's like, oh, Velociraptors, they're really smart. They're really clever because they never go to the same place twice to try to escape.
And when you see one in front of you, it's not that one you have to worry about. It's the two that are coming in on the sides.
Yeah. So they foreshadow a lot of that because that's stuff that happens later in the movie. Or when they talk about the Dilophosaurus and we hear in the background Dilophosaurus can, the things on the side of their neck, and then they can shoot poison spit at people. That happens later in the movie too. All of this stuff is heavily foreshadowed in different parts of the movie. And I think that's pretty decent writing. Like, you don't have to spell it out for your audience, but it's nice to have those seeds planted there because it's payoff. So when you mention that a Dilophosaurus can spit poison, I'm gonna want to see the Dilophosaurus spit poison, right?
Fun fact about Dilophosaurus: it did not spit poison, and it could not unfurl its cowl. So both of that is. I'm sure Spielberg was told that did neither.
Yeah, my Funko Pop over here says otherwise.
I'm sure he was told that it does neither, and he decided, you know what, it'd be cooler if it did. And that's what he went with.
Yeah. It gives us a bigger action set piece if he does.
So then they're dealing with the fact that, like, they're going to have all three of their guests. So Malcolm, we have Grant and Sattler. They're going to go on a tour of the park. And then we have Hammond's grandchildren go with, and the lawyer goes.
Yeah. So they have dinner, right? So they're in the visitor center, or they're in the tech control place, and they have dinner. All parties are there. And Hammond is trying to get them to endorse the park. Like, he's like, we got some stuff to show you still, but I want to get your opinions on what's going down. So the lawyer's like, we're gonna make millions off, like we're gonna make a fortune. We're gonna merchandise, we're gonna sell tickets for $10,000.
And the lawyer's like the only one that's excited. And
yeah,
it's because you have Malcolm worried about chaos theory, like something's going to go wrong.
Well, I wrote down a couple quotes.
Grant and Sattler are like, we don't know if this is a good idea.
Malcolm and Hammond have kind of an argument about whether Hammond is in the right to do this. And Malcolm says, you thought so much about can I do it and could I do it? You never thought about, should I do it? He's like, it's not normal to play God. Like, these things are doomed to fail. There's a lot of unpredictability that can happen when you do things like this. He says the dinos had their shot millions of years ago. It's like, why bring them back now? And then he says something that Hammond takes great offense to, which is something I want to dive deeper into. He says, you stand on the shoulders of those who did the work.
And we did a comparison to...
I said, this is like if Elon Musk tried to create a park full of dinosaurs. Like, this is a guy who is would be, because Elon Musk is not a scientist.
No,
he's kind of a smart guy, but he's not
allegedly smart.
He's not a scientist.
No,
he's just the figurehead for big innovation.
Well,
he's the face of it all.
Let's talk about how he became the CEO of Tesla. He bought that
shoulders of people who
had already did the work. The cars were already being designed. He had no part in that.
Yeah,
he just bought the right to be called CEO.
So this is a comparison. Like, if Elon Musk tried to do the same thing, this would be an equal comparison. This would be an equal criticism that Hammond is getting from Malcolm in this movie, where he's like, you're not listening to the scientists. He's like, you're not giving the scientists their due. They're the ones doing the work, but you're claiming like this is such a big discovery and you're so passionate about it. And it's okay to be passionate about it, but you got to give acknowledgement to the people that actually did the work and stop trying to say that you are the one doing the work. So I think Spielberg had a lot to say about like CEOs of business.
Like, I think it has a lot to do with, like, we think a lot about, like, can we do it? There's like this race for innovation, and then we never stop to think, should we be doing this?
Was Spielberg trying to say something? Because now that we're talking about it, and I'm thinking about it a little deeply, was Spielberg trying to say something about, I don't know, maybe I'm looking too far into it, like exploitation of your workers? Where it's like, obviously Hammond funded the research, and
he does that for multiple things. He funds the amber mines, he funds the archaeology, the digs, but he's not a scientist himself.
Yeah,
he's just a businessman.
Maybe Spielberg or Crichton, I should say Crichton, he's the one that wrote it. Mm-hmm. Crichton's trying to say something towards how you have heads of companies or rich people that are taking credit for a lot of what the working class does. Like, if Bezos did this, like if you think of Bezos and Amazon, if Bezos were to stand up and say, you know, Amazon's doing so great and like, you know, blah, 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 blah. And if he were to kind of pseudo take credit for that, it's like, well, you didn't make Amazon great. Like, all of your workers made Amazon great. And I think Crichton's saying the same thing about the research that went into the creation of these dinosaurs, or the cloning of these dinosaurs, that Hammond didn't do it, everybody else did. And Malcolm saying that line, I think, is a big shot to Hammond, because that's where he really goes on the defensive. Mm-hmm. And Hammond argues back, like, I support all of our scientists and blah, 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 blah. Malcolm also talks about, well, Sadler gets into it, and she talks about the plants and the environment. And she's like, you're bringing in all of these plants and these things into this world.
You have several plants in this area that are poisonous. She's like, you pick them because they're beautiful, but do you really even know what, like, they are plants that existed like billions of years ago, and we don't know what that would do for the environment, having these new species in a place that they've never been to before. You have to think, not only the Earth is vastly different in climate.
Yeah.
And all these dinosaurs were not from the same place on Earth. You have to think this is like Pangea time, so like everything was like a big landmass, but the different parts of the landmass had different temperatures, and some of these animals did not exist within the same like period of time. The Cretaceous period, the Jurassic period, like these animals existed at different periods in time.
There's so many I love that they have this scene in here, because there's a lot of existential issues with should we do it? Just because we can, should we do it? So Malcolm doesn't give his endorsement as of yet. Ellie doesn't give her endorsement as of yet. And then Grant kind of says the same thing where he's like, I don't know if we should be doing this. And Hammond says, oh, great. The only person I get the endorsement from is the blood-sucking lawyer. And I think that scene says a great deal about should we do this. And then I looked, we had a conversation about this during the movie where we were talking about, you know, if we could do it today, should we do it today?
No, but I also make the argument that if someone was going to do it, it would be a rich person who doesn't care about it anyway.
Yeah, and this is where I said, I'm like, if we were going to do this today, I feel like it would have to be something where you would need... So we figure out how to clone dinosaurs. Okay, great, you've cloned dinosaurs. Now you need to wait and study them for like 25 years. Like you've got to give this a lot of time so that the scientists, so you have an abundance of scientists, of different scientists.
Like, what is the effect of having dinosaurs of different periods of time all interacting with each other, having dinosaurs eating like vegetation that they might not have had during their like time period, seeing how the climate affects these different like species. You need to have research before you can even let the public see these things. It needs to be fully studied,
thoroughly researched and peer reviewed. Do not flake on the peer review process. Like, this is important. You need to give these researchers time to do the studies, to do the research, to peer review the research. You need to have experts on this. Maybe you need to have schools of thought and disciplines created for this subject, you know? So like there's a lot to consider with the existential crises of should we do this? So
after dinner, they're going to go on their tour of the park.
Also, I wrote, why can't we eat dinosaurs?
Okay, they're gonna go on their tour of the park, and Hammond is so confident in his park, he lets his 2 grandchildren go on this tour of the park. Tram tour. So in the tram, we have in one car, we have Grant, Sattler, Malcolm. In the other car, we have Gennaro, Lex, and
I didn't know the kids' names.
Tim
was the other kid. Yeah.
So, and I said, I don't know if I'd be that confident to let
Malcolm explains a chaos theory to Sadler in the car. And
she kind of like gets it.
I didn't get it.
So he does it with an example of a water droplet on your hand. And when he puts the water droplet on her hand, it goes this way. And he's like, if I put the water droplet on your hand, where do you think it's going to go? And she's like, oh, it's going to go the same way. And it goes a different way. He's like, that's chaos theory.
It's just unpredictability.
It's the unpredictability. So they're touring. The first place they go to, Dilophosaurus, doesn't come out. We don't see him. And I said it's a problem with, this is not a zoo. It's not a small enclosure. These dinosaurs get a lot of space. I don't think you're going to see the dinosaur when you want to see the dinosaur. It just depends on the day. After Dilophosaurus,
which I would be pissed if I had to pay $10,000 and I didn't see a single dinosaur. Like, that would make me really upset.
Yeah. Then we go from Dilophosaurus straight to the T-Rex enclosure. They don't see a T-Rex. They even try to bait the T-Rex with a goat. We still don't see T-Rex. So they move on, and that's where we get to the Triceratops enclosure. And
well, they get out of the car.
Well, Grant sees in the distance a Jeep, a Jurassic Park Jeep, and something lying on the ground. So he gets out. Once Grant gets out, Sattler gets out, then Malcolm gets out, then everyone gets out, and they actually go over to the dinosaur. And I'm going to get into this because this is like one of my favorite parts of the whole movie. And Ellie goes right up to the dinosaur. She's checking out the dinosaur's tongue. She's noticing all these different things, like it's uncomfortable, like it's smelly. And then the veterinarian explains like this happens every 6 weeks. I think in the book we actually get she knows what's wrong with it, and there's like she finds out she's digging the poop. In this one, in the movie, they don't go through actually what's like. She finds out what's wrong with
In the book, I remember you telling me about this. She says that maybe it ate something that it wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, because again, we have plants that did not exist in the period of time that this animal, and they explain that.
That's why I love that scene with to go back to that scene, because it's really good and really well written. That's why I love that scene where they're all Hammond's trying to get the endorsement of the scientists and they're not doing it, and Hammond's kind of getting pissed over the fact that they're not giving them the endorsement. And it's just like this is what happens when rich people want to, and maybe Crichton was making a note about this, that when rich people so passionately want to move forward with something that they don't listen to the scientists and how they're implored to do something differently or to wait on it.
And I think it has something to do with the West Indian lilac that's planted over there, because she goes through the dinosaur's poop and she doesn't find any of the pods from the West Indian lilac. But I think in the book it actually is the West Indian lilac that it's eating because it migrates because it happens every 6 weeks. So every 6 weeks, like the animal migrates to different parts of the enclosure to eat the different vegetation. And I think that's what's making it sick. And so then we get the fact that, this storm is coming. We have to get everyone back to the visitor center. They have to come back. It starts to thunder and lightning and rain, and the lawyer's saying, let's go back into the cars. And so Grant, Malcolm, Gennaro, the two kids, they go back. Ellie's like, I'm gonna stay if it's okay with the veterinarian. The veterinarian's like, that's fine with me, because I have the Jeep, the gas Jeep, and I'll just drive you back.
These are the things in my Jeep.
These are the things in my Jeep. And that's where we have, Nedry has decided this is his chance. The storms are coming. He gets a call and from the guy at the dock saying, you have to get here within this many minutes. The storm is coming. We got to get out of here. Newman. And he's like, you got to give me at least 15 minutes. I've only tried this once and it took 18. So he puts in this protocol and he shuts down the power to every fence and gate and turns off the phones, and some of the systems are down. The only thing that he keeps on is the Velociraptor enclosure, because even he would not be so dumb.
Yeah, it seems like these boys and girls are smart.
Yeah, so that's the only power that's on in the whole park, is to keep those in line. And that's important to know that he at least did not do that. But when the fences start failing, the cars stop because the power goes out. And they stop right by the T-Rex enclosure. Yikes.
And the power is out, so the T-Rex obviously is out and about, roaming around, and he's a hungry boy, that T-Rex.
Yeah, so we get... we're splitting scenes. I'm not sure which scene comes first, but Nedry, he goes in the Jeep.
He can't find the dock.
He can't find the dock because he hit the sign that gives you the direction for the dock. So he's driving off into Dilophosaurus land, and he crashes. He falls down,
and then he runs into a Dilophosaurus when he's trying to get the car working again, and
he's rude to it.
He's rude. He's like a dick to the Dilophosaurus. He's like, oh, you're a dumb guy. He's like, I'm gonna come. He's like, no wonder why you got extinct, guy. You're dumb. And I was like, this guy's gonna get murked by the Dilophosaurus. So the Dilophosaurus looks at him and goes and cowls out, gets its flappers out, and then spits poison at him twice. Yeah, and he gets him. He eats him in the car. Yeah. And so they needed Nedry to come back to be able to boot the system back up. Right, because they then explain Sam Jackson's character, who is also one of the security coding people. He explains, we need him to come back, or we're going to have to go through 2 million lines of code to get the security system up to be able to decrypt what he had put in place, or
We have to reboot the whole thing.
We have to shut the whole thing down and bring it back up. And we don't know if it's going to come back up if we do that.
They don't do that yet.
Yeah.
Because they're just trying to get the power back on. So they're trying to get the fences back on at least.
Yeah. So the T-Rex scene happens, and it's that classic scene that we get where you see the water, doom, and then you see the water move, doom, it's getting closer, and you see the water move even further. And then the T-Rex is right outside their window.
And yeah, very, very important. We also, in the book version, we have Lex noticing 2 small dinosaurs boarding a supply ship.
Okay, yeah, because you told me about this.
There's a whole subplot in the actual book where we have that dinosaurs being found on in Costa Rica. So Lex notices the 2 small dinosaurs left on the supply ship. That's what happens in the book, but it doesn't happen in this because they don't have that subplot in the movie. So
what do you think the movie needed that subplot? Or do you think it did just fine without it? It did
just fine without it. I think it would have made the movie longer.
Yeah, but the movie's like already like 2 hours and 10 minutes.
I was like, it's already a very long movie. But then we get the scene where we have the kids are in one car with the lawyer and everyone. We have Grant and Malcolm are in the other car. The lawyer, as soon as they notice that the fences aren't working, he dips. He goes to into the bathroom to hide instead of being in the car. He leaves all
those kids alone.
In the car, the kids are like, he left us. Like, he left us. And that really emotionally traumatizes those kids for a while, because you have to think they're in a dangerous situation and the adult that's supposed to be in charge of you leaves.
Yeah.
And he ends up, he dies.
Yeah, he get ate.
And I would say it's Malcolm's fault.
Well, so Malcolm runs out like that. I don't think from stories that I heard that scene wasn't supposed to be in the original script, but Goldblum wanted to put in that scene where Malcolm runs out with the flare to distract the T-Rex because he wanted Malcolm to have a heroic scene. So like Ian Malcolm wasn't like a total D-bag the entire movie.
So I think it would have worked fine with Grant doing using the flares, because the flare, like they explain, which is a totally inaccurate, now proven inaccurate statement where the T-Rex won't see you if you don't move.
Yeah, Grant keeps saying the T-Rex won't see you if you don't move. It senses movement.
And we now know that was probably very wrong. The T-Rex apparently, according to scientists, probably had really, really good eyesight.
How did they get that so wrong?
Because I think when they first were studying T-Rex, they assumed he was the same as some types of lizards.
That's fair.
There's a really hot debate in the scientific community about whether the T-Rex was a scavenger or like an active hunter.
What do you think?
It was probably a scavenger. Probably stole food that had already been killed, or food.
Could it have been both?
It could have been both. But there's hot debate. Just the way it's built.
It's built different.
It makes sense for it to have been big and scary and not essentially too fast, so that it could intimidate.
It's built different.
Instead of go and like actually hunt.
Kind of like a bear, right?
No, because bears are fast.
But bears are scavengers. If I'm thinking Yogi, he wants picnic baskets.
So it's up for debate. It's one of those things that's still debated in the community.
Yeah. So the T-Rex scene finishes off where the T-Rex is going after Grant and the granddaughter, whose name I can't remember, and Timmy is in the car, right? He can't get out of the car. So continue, because I lost track of what happened.
So Malcolm is trying to get he runs. He gets kind of knocked by the T-Rex.
He gets hurt a little bit.
And he gets knocked into a pile of debris, and the whole building comes down, and we have, unfortunately, the lawyer sitting on the toilet.
Yes, he gets eaten.
And so that's what the T-Rex sees, and he gets eaten. After he eats him, he kind of plays around with the car a little bit more. they get down, the car gets pushed off to the side, like the kid is still in the car when it gets down.
It gets like stuck in a tree.
Yeah, it gets stuck in a tree, luckily. And luckily, Grant is like just a really good guy. He doesn't ditch the kids. Like, we have that scene where
well, there's a whole character arc of Dr. Grant where he's kind of seeing Ellie, and she keeps giving him guff about not wanting kids and not being good with kids. So once the kids come into play, she like kind of pawns them off to him, and then later in the movie he's kind of tasked with protecting the kids and like being there for them. So we get this character arc of Grant learning to like kids. Later on, Hammond and Sadler have this weird conversation about a flea circus.
Yeah, flea circus.
I didn't understand.
It's talking about how he went from the flea circus to this. Like, he's always been wanting to like entertain people.
Sure. And then Ellie basically is like, well, you got to think more clearly about the consequences of your actions.
And we get really, like, the T-Rex like hurts Malcolm a lot.
And that's where we get our little Funko over there of he and Malcolm laying seductively.
Sitting sexy like. And then we have the game warden Muldoon. And we have Ellie go searching for the others once the fences are back up.
Yeah, because they shut down the power and turn it back up, or they shut down the security system and turn it back up, and it's working, but now they don't have power, so they need to go to the other side of the island, like 3 miles away, I think they said, and they have to put the power back on.
You're jumping ahead.
Oh, am I?
Yes.
Sorry.
Because they go to rescue everyone, but they only find Malcolm. And they rescue Malcolm. They kind of, the T-Rex is coming. They get chased a little bit by the T-Rex, but eventually get back to the visitor center so that Malcolm can get better. And like, we have again, Malcolm's like, it's chaos theory. And then they explain, as the kids and Grant are staying overnight in a tree, just trying to be safe, like get a good night's rest. They're trying to find their way back to the visitor center without getting hurt. But then they explain simultaneously what's happening is they have the powers on, the fences are back on, but they don't have phones and they don't really have power. So they need to shut everything down. And 3 minutes, not 3 miles, 3 minutes on the other side of the compound.
Okay. Yeah, I misinterpreted that.
It's on the other side of the compound. So 3 minutes away, they have to go in, turn everything off, turn everything back on, and hopefully it turns on. And then they have to turn on every enclosure one by one. Not thinking about
who might be trying to climb a fence.
Who might be trying to climb a fence during that time. So eventually, Grant and the kids get back to the visitors center, while simultaneously, I'm going to keep saying that, where Grant gets the kids back, puts them in the cafeteria. Ellie and Muldoon, and I believe it was the vet, someone went to go do it, like turn the power on, hadn't come back yet. Ellie's like, something happened, something went wrong. So then the game warden and Muldoon and her decide they're going to go together. They're going to go find out what happened. So they get out into the open. The game hunter says, "We're being hunted.
We're being hunted."
He's like, "Look ahead," and it's kind of like when we rebooted the system. Remember, Nedry only did not turn off the Raptor enclosure. When they rebooted the entire system, it turned off the power to the Raptor enclosure. So guess who got out?
The Raptors.
They took the chance immediately.
Yeah.
They're smart.
Clever girl.
Yeah, so she makes it, she takes a beeline, she runs to the shed, she gets everything turned on. As soon as she like turns the last thing back on, she has her big run-in with a raptor.
Yeah.
She's running away from it, limping away from it. She gets someone's hand on her shoulder, and she's like, "Oh, Muldoon," and she finds like it's just an arm.
It's an arm,
and that terrifies her. She gets out of there. She she just closes the door, and she thinks she's safe from this raptor because it's in the shed.
Yes.
Then we come out, like the game warden Muldoon, he gets eat.
Clever girl, he says. And then he gets eat.
He sees the one in front of him, and like they said, it's the two on the side you need to worry about. You got ate by one on the side.
Yeah.
Because they hunt in packs. And then Ellie's running out. Grant had left the kids in the cafeteria, went to go find the others.
First of all, when Ellie puts on the power, little Timmy's trying to climb the fence to get out, and he gets electrocuted, and the way he falls is just like he's like stiffly like a plank, like just falls off the fence, and he gets caught, but he's fine, and he's fine, but he has his hair all like pushed up, like like in cartoons when somebody gets shocked and like their hair goes up, like that's little Timmy.
It's pretty funny too.
Yeah.
So he's like he looks rough.
Blasted.
He looks rough when they get to the cafeteria. So he runs to find Ellie, runs to him, and she kind of yells to herself, "Run, run!" And she goes up to him and she kind of explains what's going on, and they get out like they're trying to get out of there. And then it goes to the cafeteria. The two kids are eating, and he's eating. He's kind of just like chilling, and then the girl's taking a bite of the Jello, and she's like, "This
Jello's wiggly," and
she's like, "You see, she's frightened, and you don't know of what until the camera pans to behind a curtain. There is
the shadow of a Velociraptor, and
so they now have to run. There's one chasing them at first. They run into the kitchen. They're hiding, and the raptor does the knock 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 sound where it's calling for the rest of the pack.
Yeah,
saying, "Here's the food. Here's the food.
I got the food."
Then you have this big scene where they're running from the two. One gets locked in the fridge, the walk-in freezer.
Yeah.
And the other one
is hunting.
Hunting.
They're hiding out in the kitchen area, and the raptor. It's this very tense scene where the raptor's like walking around, and he's chasing them. A little behind the scenes about that scene. It was very hard for Spielberg and crew to film that scene in that kitchen because all the appliances in the kitchen are reflective. So they filmed the scene with like a black tarp or like black sheets over things to try to make sure that you weren't getting the camera's reflection in the appliances.
And I'm gonna stop us for a little fun fact. Like in the book, to get the power back on, the person who goes to get the power back on is Grant.
Oh, interesting.
And Ellie and Woo are distracting.
What happened to Woo in the movie?
He gets off on the boat.
He just leaves?
Yeah, he just leaves.
Yeah.
He catches the boat. But Woo is in the book, and him and Ellie are distracting the raptors. That's who's distracting the raptors. Because Arnold, the game hunter, is the one who originally goes to turn on and gets ate, and that's why Grant has to go turn it on.
Sure.
And then Woo gets killed in the book.
Yeah,
and
which
doesn't happen.
It's different because Woo is alive and comes back in the sequels.
Yeah.
Spoilers. Comes back in the sequels.
Spoiler. Another thing we forgot to mention was when Grant and the kids are on their way back, they run into a nest.
Yes.
And
there's a bunch of eggs.
Yeah, Life finds
cracked eggs, and Grant is all surprised, and he's like, "Well, they're breeding, but how could they be breeding because they're all female?"
We talked about, Anthony had said, how does that happen? And I was talking about, well, some species of frog because they can switch their sex.
Yeah, and Grant mentions
and he
that
mentions
too.
that later on, like in a single sex environment,
like life finds
they will switch. So The kids, they're running from the one raptor now. They get to like the big control room with the computers, and they're trying to get everything back online, because even though all the fences are up, not every system is back online. The doors don't lock, things like that. And then we have
the little girl's a hacker.
She's a hacker. She's getting everything back online.
Hacker to the maxer.
So they get everything back online. The door locks, but then the raptor like breaks the window.
Yeah, I mean, there's no stopping. They're a persistent bunch, aren't they?
And we get this like big chase scene, and then we get out to the main
room of the visitor center, and there's a bunch of like
two raptors.
There's two raptors, and then there's a bunch of skeletons of dinosaurs like hanging on display.
Yeah,
and they're trying to hide inside of those things, but the raptors are trying to get them.
And then the most unlikely of heroes,
the babyface turn. From the T-Rex, he breaks into the building, he fights off the raptors, he roars, and he saves the day. The unexpected turn for the T-Rex. I don't know if I would have called that if I saw that movie for the first time, that the T-Rex would have a face turn.
We would call that it just further like shows chaos theory.
Is the T-Rex a Deus Ex Machina?
I mean, maybe. I mean, we don't really... No, because like the T-Rex does do other things. It's not like it doesn't have its own fleshed out purpose.
I guess, but they never really allude to the fact that the T-Rex would be back.
I guess.
So maybe. But you're right. I think it is going along the lines of that theme of chaos theory. Like
there was no way to predict.
It's unpredictable.
There was no way to predict that this would come in and then it would attack the.
I have a problem with chaos theory. Why do anything? Why do anything if you're just like, well, you don't know what's going to happen next. And it's like, wasn't that the fun?
And it kind of then, as that's going on, they decide they're not going to wait to see how this plays out. They're going to jump in a car. They're going to leave. And
would you have waited to see how it played out with the T-Rex and the Raptors?
I guess curiosity kills the cat.
I feel like I would want to know how that fight would end. But then
you would then become the object of what the T-Rex is trying to do.
Yeah, that's true. So it's like, do I see the end of this very cool fight and then lose my life? Or do I keep my life and not have this experience?
And they hop in the car, and Grant, as he hops in the car, he's like, after much consideration, Dr. Hammond, I'm choosing not to endorse your park. And Hammond says, me too. And
yeah, and then they drive away and they get off the island.
So here again is where we break off in the book. So at the end, they get power just before the big attack. They immediately call that ship and say, where are you? We're about to dock. You need to turn around right now. Why? There are raptors on that ship. And you're headed to the main, you're headed to Costa Rica. There are people in Costa Rica. And then they go to see the nests of the raptors to get a good estimate on how many raptors are there. There's a lot. There's a lot. Yeah. They were breeding. These raptors.
Oh man.
Yeah, so they're
bunnies.
So they're in trouble. At that point, as they're going to find this out, Hammond trips and falls into a river, and then he's eaten.
Oh man.
So yeah, Hammond dies.
That's lame.
And it ends with they call the Costa Rican National Guard shows up. They rescue everybody, and they nuke the island.
But Hammond why did they have to kill Hammond that way? What was the purpose of killing him?
I mean, he's kind of unlikable in the book.
Well, he's unlikable in the movie too.
Yeah, so yeah, he gets killed. Malcolm succumbs to his injuries in the end of this book.
But they're not, from what I know about the book, they're not clear.
They're not clear if he dies.
He kind of stays on the island.
He stays on the island because he can't move. He can't leave. But he comes back in the next book, so he doesn't die.
We'll get there. We'll talk about that.
I'll talk about it when we come back to it. But that's where it kind of really the biggest differences are the beginning and the end.
I feel like I heard before that Crichton never wanted to make a sequel to Jurassic Park. Like he kind of said all that he needed to say with Jurassic Park 1.
But The Lost World is so good.
But yeah, so when he heard that they were making, I think this is the story, but I might be wrong. But from what I heard, when the studio said we're going to make a sequel, he was like, okay, I'll write the book. And the struggle was bringing back Malcolm because he had been allegedly killed off in the book. And the studio wanted to bring Goldblum back to play the character in the sequel.
And he's like the star of the sequel.
Yeah.
So just a little bit, we went over the facts about Steven Spielberg. It was filmed on an island in Hawaii. There was a hurricane. There only one animatronic actually made it on site. A couple of things in the dinosaurs that we see are the Velociraptor, the Brachiosaurus, Triceratops, Tyrannosaurus Rex, Dilophosaurus.
This sounds like a Diplo song.
And then we have the Gallimimuses.
Yeah, the flock of Gallimimuses.
So, in the book, there's these little dinosaurs that we talked about, and my immediate thought was, are those Compsognathus?
Are we talking about this, or are we talking about the Lost World?
No, in the book, they talk about those little lizards, unknown lizards. And my first thought was, oh, this is Compsognathus. They're tiny, like, little meat eaters. They're seen in a later Jurassic Park movie that they actually kill a child, I think.
I think that's the Lost World. Yeah. That's the sequel. Yeah.
Either she's hurt very badly and dad gets mauled. I forget. But we find out, no, it's young. It's the raptors. They're getting away. And at the end they're like, these raptors are in the deep, deep jungle of Costa Rica.
So they're just vibing.
They're just vibing. They're hunting in a new environment. So very dangerous. I mean, that's really cool. Like, I will go through the dinosaurs we see in each movie. But get ready for the next one, because the main villain,
I can't remember,
is the Spinosaurus.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think there's a lot to say with this movie, and I think that it's super, super innovative for its time, and just the special effects alone,
it made me a dinosaur kid.
Yeah,
like this is the reason I was obsessed.
Everybody thinks dinosaurs are cool. Like, I don't think that there's a single person that sees a dinosaur and says, that's not cool, that's lame.
I've been obsessed, and I'm still obsessed. You can attest that I'm still obsessed. Like, I love dinosaurs.
Do you think this movie would have been the same had Spielberg stuck to the 100% animatronic?
There's no way for me to really say. I think it was innovative in its way. Like, in all the new technologies, I think you needed the use of special effects. I thought you were going to ask me, would it be like the same if it was to be for the first time made today? I'd be like, I know it came out at the most perfect time. I think they had the perfect director for it. I think they had the perfect person to do the music for it. I think everything, it was lightning in a bottle.
Lightning in a bottle. I saw a tweet. I might have mentioned this on a previous podcast, but I saw a tweet that was like, Steven Spielberg, bro, I'm making this dinosaur movie and I need some music for it. John Williams, let me write you the most beautiful score ever created.
And we haven't mentioned our wedding on this podcast yet, so I'm going to mention our wedding.
Oh, sure.
I will be coming down the aisle to a
quartet version.
A quartet version of Who Dares Me to Go.
Yeah, do your best Velociraptor as you do that, as you walk down the aisle.
Yeah. When I told my parents about that, they started laughing because they know I've always been a dinosaur kid. I was eating tree stars outside, pretending I was a dinosaur when I was little.
When I was a kid, I wanted nothing more than to be a dinosaur. I'd roam around and I'd scare the neighbor's cat, and I thought I was a dinosaur.
Dad, you'll never be a dinosaur.
Dad, you're human. You can never be a dinosaur.
But I wanted to be so badly.
Never lose your dinosaur.
I'm never not going to be a dinosaur kid. Anytime anything new content comes out for Jurassic Park, I watch it. Anytime any new like merch comes out, I want it. Yeah, I have a problem.
Do you think any of the sequels hold up to this movie?
I love all the sequels.
You love all the sequels?
I do.
Okay.
I don't like, I'm going to be honest, the newer movies, Jurassic World,
The Fallen Kingdom.
That's an okay.
No, so I liked, and we're going to review both of these movies.
Yeah, we're going to get to it. There's something special about the we did it once kind of thing, and then this is the fallout and how 2 and 3 proceed. It's not, they didn't go and try to do it again. It's the consequences of our actions in the next 2 movies.
Yeah.
There's something special about those. When you have Jurassic World and it's like, we're doing it again, and you're just like, it didn't work the first time we did it.
Opening the park.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Yeah.
And it was a recipe, chaos theory. It's a recipe for disaster the minute you did it.
Yeah, I've got some opinions about Jurassic World, but we'll get there.
I still love it because it's just like dinosaurs I always have that special place in my heart. And obviously I loved Blue. I thought that was a great addition to the franchise, but not as good. I wouldn't
The
even
minute
say,
that you give a Velociraptor a name, you've now marketed.
they've dogicized it.
Yeah,
they made it a dog.
Now you've marketed this thing to where you can sell toys that aren't just dinosaurs. Like now there's a specific dinosaur and it's a character now. Yeah. Yeah.
And you can tell, who do I love more than anything?
Blue.
I love that
Blue.
freaking dinosaur so freaking much.
Yeah.
Blue. I wanted to get the big Blue, but Anthony had to talk me out of it.
It's like $35.
I know.
For the 10-inch Blue.
And you can't play with it because it would stay in the box. Like I wouldn't take it out of the box.
Stay in the box.
Like I can cuddle the Build-A-Bear Blue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this movie has a lot to say, and I think that it's super, super, super innovative. I think I know your answer to this, but I'm going to ask you, Brie, does this movie go on your list of the top 100?
It does, if not approaching top 5. I want to give it that number 1 spot, but I'm going to leave the number 1 spot open for future movies.
Yeah, I am also going to put this movie on the top 100. Listen, I don't want to make this list. I know we got 2 movies on the list so far. We've got Halloween. Did you put Halloween on your list? Okay. I know we've got Halloween, and now we have Jurassic Park. I don't want to make this list solely like the classics, right? So eventually we'll get to some movies where we're going to disagree on what goes into the top 100. But when we review, like, everybody has contrarian beliefs on movies where it's
I don't think only movies made before 2000 are the good movies.
Yeah.
Like just because it's old doesn't mean it's good. Like there are movies that were made post like 2000 that are like really good.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that a lot of people will, just because Jurassic Park is at its core a good movie and a well-made movie and an innovative movie, I think people push back against that in a lot of ways, just like people push back against Star Wars. And people push back against, I don't know, like these movies that are very classic that everyone's like, oh, this is a great movie. This is, one of the best movies of all time.
I'll make an argument.
People make like stupid takes where it's solely to be contrarian to what everybody else thinks. And they're real, like people have takes on movies where they want to just, where we go left, they go right. They just want to be antagonistic, and they want to be different. And I don't think that this movie deserves that, because at its core it is innovative and it's good.
I'll raise you like West Side Story, like the classic, the first one they made.
I didn't see the Spielberg's one. I think it's terrible. When you're a jet,
everyone loves it, and like they remade the movie. It just came out, and it didn't do well. We'll debate.
Well, it's COVID season.
And they kept a known assailant in the cast.
Sure.
But I thought the original was so boring. I was a big musical theater kid in high school, and I had asked my parents for it for like a gift. And I had one of my friends over, Josh. I forget what my mom made for dinner, but I made him eat it, and he didn't want to eat it. And I said, you can't be rude to my mom. You got to eat this food. And then we were watching it, and it was such a long movie. We gave up. We stopped watching it. We went downstairs and watched a VHS of Annie Get Your Gun, which was a better movie to watch because it was more fun. Both musicals.
We should do once we're done with Halloween and once we're done with Jurassic Park, our next series to go through. I've had some ideas on where to go for the future. Like I thought we should do Disney like the Disney Renaissance. We could do musicals. Like there's a lot that we can do.
I'm excited.
Yeah, we'll have that discussion.
So you heard it from me. This is definitely on the top 100, probably in my top 5.
Yeah, I don't know where I would rank it.
It has to be in your top 10 at least.
Well, I got to get it more than 2 movies on there before I make that decision. But yeah, both in our top 100. So we'll add it to the list.
To the list.
The ongoing list for Anthony and Brie. We should really write these things down before it starts getting to a point where we can't remember.
Well, there's only 2, so it's like, what are we going to forget? So don't forget to follow us on Instagram at review_pod. You can follow Anthony on Twitter
at GLDTV1 on Twitter. You can also, if you are not watching our YouTube video modem, then you can subscribe to us on YouTube at Review Podcast on YouTube.
And you get to see our treats, and you get to see our setup. I mean, we both finished our beverages
pretty quickly.
And I had some of this amber treat. It's actually pretty good. I'm not gonna go and eat it after today.
Yeah. So you can follow us at all of our socials. Remember to email us. Our email is always posted on our YouTube page and through our podcast in the podcast description. It is reviewpodcast1@gmail.com. So email us if you have any recommendations, if you made Brie's treats and you want to show us, if you have any questions, if you have anything you want us to read on air, we'll read it for you.
Dinosaur questions, I'd love to do those. Also, if you have an idea for our next series, what should we go through next, please let us know. We've been thinking about Disney Renaissance movies. We've been thinking about musicals. We want some ideas because we are big horror fans. So I
don't want it to be a solely horror.
Yeah, we don't want to just stick to horror because that's all.
We'll probably take a break from horror for a while once we're done. But you have to
understand, we watch so much horror in this house.
I have Shudder now, and I was considering canceling Shudder, but I'm like, you know what? Maybe we would use it. I don't know. Maybe
we're big into this. So
follow us on everything. Thank you for listening. Thank you for following. And
thank you for being you. Have a dinosaur day.
Have a dinosaur day. I'm Anthony.
I'm Brie.
This is the Review Podcast, and we are signing off.
Review podcast, the